now we review the 2024 film Arcadian. It has Nick Cadge, but he really doesn't chew the scenery. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, I have recently watched the latest attempt by Nick Cadge to account for his ridiculous lifestyle, which is Arcadian. I believe there's an airplane flying over or something of that nature. Now, Arcadian is a film where society has essentially fallen because of pollution, and some rather questionable monsters have forced us to blockade ourselves in during the nighttime. And Nicolas Cage plays a father taking care of two sons after the apocalypse. So if you don't want to live in that apocalypse, you should probably comment, like, and subscribe, because for every 1,000 subscribers I get, I do purchase one of these bracelets from For Ocean. They pull a pound of trash out of the ocean every time I do that. I also purchased these medals from the Conqueror. This is my Mount Everest medal. And for every one I purchase, they plant 5 trees. So I am trying to plant trees to offset the apocalypse in this movie from happening. Just to be clear, the monsters in this movie are not capable of taking down society. Society appears to have been taken down by pollution, although you don't see any indication of that. That is very much a side aspect. Now, to be clear, this is not the kind of movie that would normally go into theaters. I think if Nicolas Cage was not involved in this film, it probably would have been a direct-to-Shudder release, but because he's in there, he's something of a draw. Shudder put it into theaters to get some promotion. That is not to say this is a bad film. Now, people have likened Arcadian to A Quiet Place. That is a poor analogy. Yes, they are both movies involving monsters, but in A Quiet Place, I do believe there's no keeping the monsters out, there's just keeping quiet. This is more a remake of I Am Legend or Omega Man, without the aspect of they're trying to figure out how to get rid of the monsters, although in a way, A Quiet Place is a remake of Omega Man or I Am Legend, because, yeah, you know, they're trying to figure out how to beat the monsters. Or are they? Maybe that was incidental. Anyway, so yeah, what you have here, you have the nuclear family of Cage. We don't know what happens to the mom, and the older brother who's going through hormones, the younger brother who's ironically the somewhat more responsible one. And, I mean, really, the plot is pretty loose. It's more a coming-of-an-age story because, other than the goal of survival, you know, there's not much there. The one brother is trying to hook up with that chick. And it's like, yeah, that's his goal throughout the movie. But, you know, there is not a solid, singular through line for, other than survival, this is what we're doing. And where I think this movie shines the best is the monster design. Some people might think them hokey. I mean, some of these things looked like bizarre, hairy bat camels to me. And you're asking yourself, where did this thing come from? What's the deal here? And you never get an explanation. But the monsters are not as tough as, like, the, guess they called them Death Angels from A Quiet Place. They're just hairy, stupid monsters. They're not as nasty as your average black bear. You could take one, you and a good, solid chef's knife are more than a match for one of these booglies. And this begs the question, why are we hiding from them? I mean, there's one scene where there's a bunch of people in shotguns. It's real simple. During the day, you build yourself a nice hallway, and they come down the hallway at night, and you have a door you can toss down on them, and as they come down the hallway, you know, you blast them. Or you get yourself some spears and some armor, and you go out where you might find them. They come charging at you. You've got a spear. A knife can take one down. So why are we worrying about these things? How are they a threat? No one's making any sense. You might say that pollution has made human beings into sissies, but we don't see any of that. Okay? You're on a rural farm. There doesn't appear to be a big pollution problem. But, there is a lot of bugs in certain scenes. You see a lot of insects. So I guess that might have something to do with it. But, yeah, one of the bigger problems you see in this movie is human greed, which is a common theme in horror movies. It's like, yeah, who's the real monster? Us or the things that we're running away from? Well, it's us. It really is us. We're bad. And if we weren't being bad, this would have never happened to begin with, and this would all be over. All right? So, look, I know I'm kind of trashing this film, but for what it is, it's a good movie. I mean, it belongs in the upper middle of your watch list. It's not a bad movie by any means. It is a done movie. It's not something new. It's not bringing anything terribly interesting to the format, but it's not the what, it's the how. I mean, look, if you look at a slasher movie, your average slasher movie is somebody's pissed off for some dumb reason, and they go around killing people. That's a slasher movie, all right? This is a Omega Man movie where, society has fallen and we have to do the thing to keep ourselves from being eaten by the bugly. So this is this kind of movie. And for this kind of movie, I actually like this better than A Quiet Place. A Quiet Place pretty much lived off the concept of this is what we do to hide from the monsters, whereas, there are better ways of doing that, okay, and you're just dealing with it in the most sad and pathetic way possible. In this movie, you have very much the same thing, where human beings, at least, they can fight these things. They do fight these things. And they form a threat when there's a large enough number of them. They're basically, instead of zombies, they're monsters. It's a very similar concept, but it's a concept I enjoy. Nicolas Cage is very subdued in this movie. He's showing some acting range. If you're a fan of his more eccentric performances, this is not one of them. Okay, but Arcadian is a solid film. It is worth watching, particularly if you have Shudder. I think it probably would be better in the theaters because you'd be able to see the details far more clearly. So, upper middle of your watch list, that's where I'm putting this. Solid movie. I'm Richard.
Salutations, plebeians! It is I, Stephen Miller, emissary and advisor to his dark orange lordship and the real President Donald Trump, reminding you to comment on and like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, or I will suck out your eyes and feed them to my two tarantulas, Meredith and Red Bill!